The judge also recognises that there is a necessity for the government to house destitute asylum seekers, and if this hotel or others are closed, then there will be nowhere to put them. To him it is a statutory duty of the Home Office, short of any change in the human rights framework, and the hotels, initial accommodation, were arrived at as an emergency solution. They represent a stepping stone towards more permanent accommodation, dispersal accommodation, in houses or flats. Mould does not accept there is any evidence that asylum seekers are more predisposed to violent or criminal behaviour. The two offenders and one alleged offender at the Bell are just bad individuals, you understand. So must be the hundreds of asylum seekers accused, charged or convicted around the country. The places and cultures they come from are irrelevant to this, no doubt. Ditto for them being overwhelmingly young males. Neither should, in his view, local protests or unrest be considered as a reason to close somewhere. That would just encourage mob rule. He does partly have a point here. And because the police already have powers to counter unrest, then there is no need to assist them by removing the cause of that unrest. The distinction between a hotel and a hostel is also discussed to test whether it is a breach of planning permission. The criteria included price and quality, if the inhabitants are from an exclusive group, duration of stay, whether there are dormitories or single rooms, and whether an individual has a choice to stay there or not. Another factor was said to be block booking by an organisation. If one party books up all the rooms, then it is no longer publicly available and thus ceases to be a hotel. In balance, the judge feels, the Bell can be argued to still be performing the function of a hotel and thus hasn't breached planning permission. This is most dubious to me, because the Bell seems to fall into the hostel camp on most metrics. But even if Mould is correct, a hotel for asylum seekers would still be unsuitable and objectionable, just as a hostel would be. It doesn't change the negative effect it is having on Epping. The hearing notes do introduce some new information into the public domain. We see email chains between the various parties that shed some light on the timeline and different motivations. We learn Essex County Council, ECC, were involved in the Home Office's discussions, presumably because they are in charge of social care. ECC have also called for the hotel to be shut down, signing a joint letter with EFDC and 2 local MPs to that effect on July the 30th. Importantly, the Home Office did not wait for both ECC and EFDC to formally respond to consultations before mobilising and starting to move the migrants in. Both parties were first approached on the 17th of February, and there was a consultation meeting, but no official response to it. On the 11th of March, the Home Office emailed both parties and said it was ready to begin the process. After 2 days, there was still no official response, and the Home Office emailed again to say they were expecting to commence on the 24th of March. On the 17th of March, EFDC wrote back objecting to this, but still it came to pass. We also learn that after Somani's change of use application was withdrawn in March 2024 and they had begun taking migrants again in April 2025, they responded to renewed council pressure by saying they would make another application. This was in an email on April the 22nd. However, the Home Office, via the contractor CTM, who was then running the site's operation, instructed them not to. Somani told EFDC this on May the 15th. Very interesting. Questioning a legal judgment is rather like questioning the decision of a referee in a football match. We saw this during the Brexit standoff, where the courts made several controversial decisions which stalled the process and clipped the government's wings. These were like a contentious penalty call in the knockout stages, or Frank Lampard's disallowed goal in pre-VAR days. The thing is, even if you disagree and suspect the judge or referee is partial, you have to grit your teeth and accept it. There's nothing to be done. That's the system we're in. You need to be philosophical and realise that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but it doesn't mean you have to like it. That said, we all know that when a judge rules on issues of great political significance, it is likely they will sympathise with the establishment and arrive at the decision the establishment wants. I'm not saying that happened here, of course, I'm just saying it can happen. Just as a judge can be mistaken, they can also be partial. Again, Brexit showed us that. The establishment these days, of course, is the Liberal centre-left, fully embodied by the Labour government. In the past, the establishment were Conservatives, and judges typically were of that mind, some even quite reactionary. Not anymore. An embattled Starmer could not afford for an asylum hotel to be shut down, as it would have had a domino effect around the country. It would have meant needing to find somewhere else to house tens of thousands of illegal immigrants, asylum claimants. This simply could not happen in the government's eyes, and it could be the judge was conscious of this. As mentioned, he does repeatedly point out the need the government has to accommodate migrants in hotels on a temporary basis. One thing worth mentioning is that Mould did not rule out the prospect of the council taking other action in the future. There may be a slim chance of this succeeding, especially if more crime or antisocial behaviour emanates from the bell, but we can't count on it. Lawful protest and democratic challenges across the country need to continue, whatever our councils or judiciary do.